So a local council wants sports lighting poles audited just like this one. Now we were engaged by the company who maintains these assets to plan, capture and deliver images that show how many lights per pole, as well as the type of lighting used and any issues with the connections or rust that require maintenance. This will help build historical data for future degradation and upgrade reports. For example, for the newer lights installed like these LEDs, next time they are inspected, they can compare before and after images to spot any degradation in quality. For older ones like these ones who have bulbs, we can also check if any are broken, missing or have fallen out. The files we deliver also need to be labelled correctly for the client asset management system, which is basically ensuring that each image is renamed with signifiers for the pole ID, park location and types of sports facilities that it covers. So it's not just the assets that are delivered, but how the data is actually provided so it is usable to the client. So the client has a deadline to meet, which means we need to find out how many pilots we need to shoot a certain amount of poles a day to make sure that we can meet that deadline. So we need to determine how many sites, how many poles per site, how long each pole will take to inspect on average, and this will determine the overall time that this project will take from start to finish so we can quote effectively. Also, these ovals can be highly populated by sports training, dog walkers, or even events, so we need to build in contingencies to move on or return when events conclude, or get council to advise us when it's safe to return. So that's all very good and well, but we also need to know exactly what needs to be inspected. We like to use MyMaps to import that CSV file, which can pre-populate both the location and the names of the assets. We love using MyMaps. It's easy to label and update, differentiate suburbs with colors, check off when a site is complete or if a site has an issue. Photos can be added. We can easily share this with the client for real-time progress updates. It can also be used in the field to help pilots navigate to a site, and we can also use the names to help create folders in the capture process for easier wrangling. Because we'll also be using the Enterprise drones for most of this capture process, we'll also be using Flight Hub 2's ability to add annotations into flight planning, and this essentially means that once a pilot is logged in, they can see the assets on the map, so they don't need to take their hands off the controller to check MyMaps on their phone. And one of the other reasons we really love Flight Hub 2 is the ability to share a live stream of the drone in action. So this is really good for being able to share any questions that the pilot might have directly. We can easily do this by sharing the live stream, copying and pasting that into our chats with the client, and then they can log on and answer any questions that the pilot might have. Alright guys, so equipment. Now on inspection jobs, you most likely might be using the Mavic 3 Enterprise. Great drone, mechanical shutter, has RTK compatibility for precision flying, especially when you're closer to assets. But there are a couple of other drones that we wanted to also use just to make sure that we're covered for any kind of scenario. So apart from the Mavic 3 Enterprise with the RTK module, we're also using the Mavic 3 Pro because of that 3x zoom. It's actually a much better camera in our opinion than the 7x that you only have, apart from the wide, in the Enterprise. So for any of the older structures where we really need to get more detailed shots of inside the canopy to see if the globe has broken or anything like that, using the 3x on the Mavic 3 Pro is much better than the 7x. Also with the 7x we need to be further back, so it's just a lot simpler if you switch just from the wide to the 3x to the Mavic 3 Pro. So why wouldn't we use the Mavic 3 Pro the entire time? Well, the other reason that we do love the Mavic 3 Enterprise is the integration into Flight Hub 2. So you can actually create a project and you can upload annotations, just simply importing the same CSV file that we did into MyMaps to then show visually all the different assets in your map. So when creating files, you can easily just see that on the map instead of needing to grab out your phone. And we've also got the Mini 3 Pro, just for any of the assets that might be a little bit too close to maybe trees or anything that we feel like might be a bit too dangerous to fly these larger drones. Of course, maintaining safety from the public, at least 30 meters, is essential to any kind of operation outside in public areas. So a lot of the safety we'll be using is, of course, a rolling blockade of cones that we're going to be setting down, as well as drone signage. Of course, my high-vis vest for visibility. We're going to have a spotter for pedestrian management, as well as to help move the safety barriers around the grounds. Now, we have a lot of Mavic 3 batteries that we will need, because obviously we're going to be flying all day. So battery management is one of the most important factors to making sure that your inspections over the day run smoothly, because if you don't have batteries, you can't fly. So when you're doing up to 30 polls a day, these can only last so long. So we have battery management in the car, but if the pilot doesn't have it, you can also use a portable generator. So we also have one of these, it's the Blue Yeti. This will keep your Mavic 3 batteries charged all day long. But the other secret to managing your batteries is to not run them down to 25%. What we like to do is do 1, maybe 2 polls maximum, then bring the drone down and change it out. That way you've only used about 70% of your battery, and it's a lot quicker to top up to 100% from 70 than it is from 25%. Also, your controller will be running the entire time, so you've got to make sure that you're also maintaining the controller power. For what we're doing is we're just running a power brick and just connecting it into the controller, and then just having that in your pocket when it's active. So at all times, you're also getting power to the controller. And speaking of the controller, all our pilots also have a harness, so they can go hands-free when needing to change batteries or just put it down to check something. So you're not actually needing to put this on the ground, accidentally step on it or anything like that. You've always got this just hanging from your neck. And then finally, some additional requirements is of course a laptop to wrangle your data, and then you need some data to wrangle your data. So we also got a 5G dongle. You can also use a hotspot of your phone, but just having that attached to the laptop, we always know where it is and turned on. And that dongle can also be used for your RTK data for your enterprise drone, which if you're not using the base station, because they're so mobile, it just takes so long to set up, just using the N-Trip system, which is free. You can look into that, just give it a Google. All you need to do is register, but you do need to have the drone connected to the internet for that signal to lock on and work. So the first thing we do is make sure that all the assets that we capture are able to be wrangled easily, and not just the pilot wrangling, could be the spotter or could be the project manager back in the office in this case. So we want to make sure that we create folders for every single asset that we capture. All right, so now we're going to launch the drone, and then the first image that we're going to take is just a front-on image, just showing all the assets that are currently on the pole. Like that, and then that's it. And as you can see, I haven't used much battery at all. So from here, I would come down and land, and then we would move the entire safety area around to the next pole, create a new folder with the new name, and then start the whole process again. All right guys, so we've gone through the scope, the planning, the equipment, the actual capture process. The last and most important part of a project is the actual data wrangling and final delivery of that data to the client so it can be useful to them. So let's walk through the process that we usually do. So we're using Dropbox for our data wrangle. So once the polls have been captured, the pilot uploads all the captured data to a Dropbox while driving to the next location. And you can just let the files upload, and that's being used, of course, with a 5G dongle. Now, once that's all synced back in the office, the project manager will manage the file renaming and move all the completed data to the correct location. Then we finally go into My Maps and change all the polls that have been completed and moved into client access to a green tick to show the client the progress in real time. All right guys, hope you enjoyed this video and you learned a little bit about inspecting assets at volume, and you can take something away from it to apply it to your own operation. From determining the scope to find out how long a project might take, to the equipment we like to use, and that includes not just the drones but the apps that we use to support the pilots in the field, as well as manage the progress of the operation. The actual capture process is important, but it's really the simplest part of any of these operations. And finally, don't forget the workflow for wrangling the data to the client's specifications. It is just as important as what is captured. Just as long as you plan for it, large-scale asset inspections are a fantastic way to build your business profile and get into larger projects as you build your experience in the drone industry. If you want to know more about drone inspections, you can check out our Drone Masterclass Academy in the links below, where we do an even deeper dive into this inspection process. Otherwise, see you guys in the next one. Happy flying.